Chosen one, the masks are falling off, and the whole community is looking at this person questionably because they know this person lied about you. What started as whispered doubts has erupted into undeniable truth. Their elaborate deception is crumbling in real time, and everyone who once believed their carefully crafted lies is now seeing them for exactly what they are. This is your vindication moment, and the universe is making sure everyone gets a front row seat to watch their house of cards collapse. The first sign came through your work. Someone you trusted, someone who'd watched you build your dreams from nothing, began asking questions that felt like tiny daggers wrapped in concern. Are you sure you're ready for that promotion? Maybe you should wait another year. The words carried a vibration that made your solar plexus clench, but you dismissed it as imposter syndrome. You didn't yet understand that energy vampires speak in the language of your own doubts. This same person whose online persona bore no resemblance to their authentic self had been watching your social media with forensic precision. Every post you made was screenshotted, analyzed, dissected for weak points. They'd built elaborate spreadsheets tracking your engagement rates, noting which topics resonated most with your audience, mapping the exact formula of your authentic expression so they could reverse engineer it for their own failing platform. Meanwhile, in a corner of the internet you'd never think to look, several people sat in a private group chat planning your downfall. They called themselves healers, lightworkers, and spiritual entrepreneurs. But their messages pulsed with the kind of darkness that masquerades as love and light. The leader, someone who'd built their entire online presence by copying your aesthetic, your words, your very essence, typed furiously into the night, "We need to stop this before it goes too far. They don't deserve what's coming to them." What you couldn't see yet was the intricate web they'd woven around your life. Your workplace competitor wasn't just naturally ambitious, they'd been feeding information about your projects to the leader for months. Someone who'd seemed like such a supportive friend had been documenting your private struggles and sharing them in the group chat as intel. Even the healer you'd briefly worked with the previous season had joined their digital coven after being convinced you'd stolen techniques they'd taught you. The irony was thick enough to choke on. These people who claimed to channel divine energy spent their evenings engaged in the most profane activities imaginable. They'd convinced themselves that tearing you down was actually a service to the universe, that your success was somehow unearned, that your authentic gifts were actually elaborate performances hiding a hollow center. Money was the root that fed this tree of jealousy. While you'd learned that money flows naturally when you serve from your heart, that it's a terrible master but an excellent servant, they chase it like addicts. Every client you gained felt like a personal theft to them. Every opportunity that came your way was evidence of cosmic injustice in their minds. They couldn't understand that abundance isn't a pie with limited slices, but an infinite spring that flows strongest to those who've done the inner work. The leaders' financial desperation had reached a fever pitch. Their recent online launches had flopped spectacularly, each one a paler imitation of content you'd created months earlier. Their engagement had plummeted as people unconsciously sensed the artificial nature of their offerings. They'd maxed out credit cards trying to buy the visibility that came naturally to you through genuine connection. In their twisted logic, destroying your reputation would somehow restore their own credibility. The attacks began subtly, technical glitches that destroy your work right before deadlines, sudden illness that struck only when you had important meetings, friends who began questioning your motives with surgical precision. Don't you think you're moving too fast? Maybe you should be more humble. The gaslighting was so expertly crafted that you almost believed you were the problem. What they didn't realize was that each attack left a psychic signature, like fingerprints on the soul. Your heightened sensitivity, the very trait they sought to exploit, became your early warning system. You began noticing the timing wasn't random. Setbacks always struck right before breakthroughs. Problems materialized precisely when you were about to level up. The pattern was so obvious once you saw it that you almost laughed at their amateur-hour approach to spiritual warfare. Authentic power cannot be dimmed by artificial darkness. Every spell they cast, every bit of chaos magic they hurled in your direction, hit the force field of your genuine spirit and boomeranged back with compound interest. You noticed this pattern first in small ways, how their own projects began failing, how their collaborations crumbled, how their audiences started seeing through the facade they'd built on borrowed energy. The boomerang effect accelerated with terrifying precision. The leader's laptop crashed during a live stream, corrupting their entire content library. Your workplace competitor's biggest client suddenly questioned their ethics after a random audit revealed discrepancies in their billing. The supportive friend's healing practice began hemorrhaging clients who complained about feeling drained after sessions. The healer discovered that techniques they'd tried to claim as their own were actually ancient practices they'd learned from the same teachers you had. Each member of their digital coven faced consequences perfectly tailored to their individual transgressions. The universe wasn't just sending back their negative energy, it was educational, forcing them to experience exactly what they'd tried to inflict on you. The cosmic justice was so poetic, it could have been scripted by a divine comedian with a PhD in karma. Your divine protection manifested in ways that would have seemed miraculous if you hadn't finally understood the game being played. Opportunities that should have been blocked by their interference opened wider than ever before. The world's greatest boss scenario they'd tried so desperately to prevent began unfolding with breathtaking precision. A partnership emerged that would catapult you into the exact position they'd nightmared about: visible, influential, untouchable. The partnership arrived through channels they couldn't have monitored or interfered with. A successful entrepreneur from another industry entirely had been following your work through a mutual connection who'd never appeared on your public social media. They'd been looking for someone with your exact combination of authenticity and strategic thinking for a collaboration that would transform both your careers. The contract negotiations happened through encrypted channels. The meetings took place in locations they'd never think to monitor, and the timeline moved with supernatural speed. What drove them to madness was your refusal to play their game. They expected retaliation, public exposure, a dramatic confrontation that would justify their narrative of you as the villain. Instead, you continued building, creating, serving. Your silence wasn't passivity, it was the confident stillness of someone who knows the universe handles its own justice system. Every day you didn't strike back. Their own guilt and paranoia consumed them further. The silence was strategic in ways they couldn't comprehend. While they spiraled into obsessive plotting, you were receiving guidance from sources they'd never accessed. Your meditation practice had deepened into direct communication with protective forces that had been guarding your path long before this particular group of energy pirates had entered the scene. The more centered you became, the more chaotic their attacks appeared to outside observers. Their desperation reached peak insanity when they attempted to infiltrate your personal relationships. The leader created fake dating profiles to catfish you. Your workplace competitor tried to befriend your romantic partner through professional networking. The supportive friend reached out to your family members with concerns about your mental health. Each attempt backfired spectacularly, exposing their obsession to people who began asking uncomfortable questions about their motivations. The breaking point came when their community began asking questions. People who'd known the lead antagonist for years started noticing inconsistencies in her story. Why did their breakthroughs always coincide with your launches? Why did their language so perfectly mirror yours from months before? Why did they seem so obsessed with someone they claimed to barely know? The house of cards they'd built on stolen energy began collapsing from within. The questions started innocently enough. A longtime follower of the leader noticed that their original meditation technique was identical to one you'd shared months earlier. Another observer pointed out that their recent breakthrough insights were eerily similar to blog posts you'd written the previous year. When confronted, their explanations became increasingly convoluted, involving claims of channeling the same guides and accessing universal consciousness that fooled no one with genuine spiritual experience. They faced their own reckoning when a co-worker noticed their sudden expertise in methodologies you'd been developing. Their attempts to claim independent discovery fell apart when timestamps revealed they'd accessed your research files through shared company systems. The ethical violation wasn't just professional, it revealed a character flaw that made colleagues question everything about his integrity. You discovered the full scope of their operation, not through investigation, but through confession. Former members of their group, sickened by what they'd participated in, reached out with screenshots, recordings, detailed accounts of the coordinate campaign against you. The breadth of their obsession was staggering. They'd analyzed your content like intelligence officers, tracked your movements across platforms, even attempted to interfere with your personal relationships. What they called strategy, the universe called evidence. The confessions came in waves, each revelation more disturbing than the last. Someone who'd briefly joined their group chat before their conscience kicked in shared screenshots of their planning sessions. The level of detail was invasive beyond belief. They'd mapped your posting schedules, identified your emotional triggers, even tracked your energy cycles to time their attacks when your defenses would be lowest. The stalking behavior was so extreme it crossed into criminal territory. Another whistleblower, someone who'd been present for their video calls, described sessions that resembled war councils more than spiritual gatherings. They'd assigned roles like a military operation, the leader as strategist, your workplace competitor as infiltrator, the supportive friend as emotional manipulator, the healer as spiritual authority underminer. They'd created detailed dossiers on your supporters, identifying who might be turned against you with the right pressure. The revelation that shook your foundation wasn't their hatred. You'd sensed that for months. It was realizing how many people had been watching this unfold, how many had seen the truth but remained silent, how many had protected you in ways you'd never know. A community of light workers, genuine ones, had been creating a buffer around your energy field. Teachers you'd never met had been mentioning your name in protection prayers. Strangers had been sending you strength without your knowledge. This invisible network of support explained phenomena you'd attributed to luck or coincidence. The technical problems that should have destroyed your business somehow always resolved at the last minute. The health issues that appeared during crucial periods mysteriously cleared up before causing permanent damage. The financial pressures that should have forced you to compromise your values were always relieved by unexpected income streams. A spiritual teacher from across the country finally reached out to explain how they'd been guided to include you in protection rituals. Your name kept coming up in my meditations, they wrote. I didn't know why until I saw what was happening to you online. The dark work being done against you was so obvious to anyone with real sight. Their message included names of others who'd been doing similar work, forming an unconscious network of spiritual guardians around your mission. You weren't just the target, you were the catalyst. Your mere existence, your commitment to authenticity in a world of spiritual fraud, was forcing everyone around you to face their own shadows. The people attacking you weren't really angry at you, they were furious at their own reflection in your light. Your success wasn't the problem, their lack of genuine inner work was. This understanding shifted everything. The attacks weren't personal vendettas, they were cosmic tests designed to verify your readiness for the mission ahead. Every challenge they created forced you to deepen your spiritual practices, strengthen your boundaries, and clarify your purpose. Without realizing it, they'd become your most effective spiritual teachers, pushing you toward mastery through adversity. The money they'd obsessed over began flowing to you in streams they could never have imagined, not because you'd fought for it, but because you'd become a clear channel for it. The opportunities they'd tried to block multiplied exponentially. The reputation they'd attempted to destroy became unassailable. Every arrow they'd shot at your character had somehow sharpened your integrity instead. The partnership offer included financial terms that dwarfed anything you'd previously imagined possible. The contract wasn't just about money, it was about platform, influence and resources to serve at a scale that matched your expanding consciousness. The irony was perfect. While your attackers had been focused on stealing crumbs from your existing success, the universe had been preparing to hand you an entire bakery. The financial flow came with its own protection mechanisms. Attempts to interfere with your bank accounts triggered fraud alerts that exposed the perpetrators. Efforts to sabotage your client relationships backfired when customers became even more loyal after witnessing your grace under pressure. Every economic attack they launched strengthened your financial foundation instead of weakening it. Their final desperate attempt came in the form of public exposure, not of you but of themselves. In trying to rally others against you, they'd revealed the depth of their own dysfunction. Screenshots of their private conversations leaked. Former followers shared stories of manipulation and energy theft. The very community they'd hoped to turn against you became witnesses to their elaborate deception. The leader of this spiritual mafia found themselves exactly where they'd tried to place you, isolated, questioned, struggling with credibility that evaporated like morning mist. But even in this moment, the universe offered them a path back to the light. The cosmic joke was that they could have achieved everything they'd wanted through the same authentic work you'd done, but they'd chosen the shortcut of theft and manipulation instead. The leader's fall was spectacular in its completeness. The platforms that had once showcased their borrowed wisdom now displayed the evidence of their deception. Comment sections filled with former clients sharing stories of feeling manipulated and drained. Their attempts at damage control only made things worse, each explanation revealing new layers of dishonesty. The spiritual community that values authenticity above all else rejected them completely. Chosen one, anyone can listen to messages like these, but few will step into their true power. We are here to help you do just that. The weekly Chosen Ones group calls are now on Zoom, and this is the moment you've been waiting for your entire life. These meetings are literal power vortexes where destinies are forged, where chosen ones unite their consciousness to create something that cannot exist in isolation. This is where everything changes. This is where you step into your greatness. Every week a doorway opens, but only for those brave enough to step through it. Watcher-level members of the Obsidian Inner Order can experience these transformative sessions live, feeling the energy surge through your entire being. In our most recent gathering, participants were stunned by revelations about the Great Pyramids of Giza as sophisticated ancient power plants, and the shocking truth about Washington, D.C.'s layout perfectly aligning with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Star Chamber members receive unlimited access to the complete recordings archive, a treasure trove of wisdom that grows more valuable with each passing week. This is your defining moment. The knowledge, the connection, the power that flows through these calls cannot be found anywhere else. Join the Obsidian Inner Order now, link in the description, while the few remaining Star Chamber slots are still available. Your presence is not just welcome, it's necessary. Will you answer the call that has been echoing through your soul? The time is now. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, was still offering them a way back. Several spiritual teachers reached out privately, offering genuine support if they were willing to acknowledge their actions and begin real healing work. The path to redemption was always available. It just required the humility to admit fault and the courage to start over with integrity. As winter progressed into the season of awakening, that timeline that kept appearing in your awareness like a lighthouse beacon, the final pieces clicked into place. The partnership that had been prophesied began manifesting with supernatural ease. Contracts that should have taken months materialized in weeks. The protection that had seemed invisible became undeniably obvious as every obstacle they'd placed in your path transformed into a stepping stone. The breakthrough brought revelations that redefined everything you thought you knew about your mission. The partnership wasn't just a business opportunity, it was a platform for global transformation. The resources brought to the table would allow you to reach millions of souls hungry for authentic spiritual guidance. The timing aligned perfectly with a consciousness shift that would make your message essential rather than optional. The awakening extended beyond professional success. Your personal relationships deepened as the people who'd remained loyal through the attacks proved themselves to be your true soul family. New connections formed with incredible speed as like-minded individuals were drawn to your elevated frequency. The loneliness you'd sometimes felt as a chosen one transformed into the recognition that you were part of a vast network of light workers scattered across the globe. The resolution wasn't the dramatic confrontation they'd been scripting in their minds. It was the quiet dismantling of their entire operation through the simple force of truth. Communities that had been fooled began asking questions. Collaborators who'd been manipulated started connecting dots. The network of deception collapsed, not through external pressure, but through its own internal contradictions. Truth has a weight that eventually crushes all lies built upon it. The elaborate structure they'd constructed to support their false narrative couldn't withstand the pressure of sustained scrutiny. Each exposed deception weakened the foundation until the entire edifice collapsed in a cascade of revelations that left no doubt about their true nature. What they never understood was that you'd been operating from a completely different paradigm all along. While they played finite games with winners and losers, you'd been playing the infinite game where everyone can win through their own authentic expression. While they hoarded energy like it was scarce, you'd learned that sharing your light made it brighter. While they tried to tear others down to build themselves up, you'd discovered that rising together lifts everyone higher. The paradigm difference explained why their attacks felt so ineffective against your core being. They were using weapons designed for ego warfare against someone who'd transcended ego identification. Their ammunition couldn't penetrate defenses they didn't understand existed. It was like trying to sink a submarine with surface-to-surface missiles, the wrong tools for the wrong target. The chosen one's burden isn't the weight of persecution, it's the responsibility that comes with unshakable spiritual protection. Now that you've seen how the game works, how energy vampires operate, how spiritual warfare manifests in the modern world, you can never again plead ignorance. You're being called not just to protect yourself, but to light the way for others still trapped in the maze of manipulation and false spiritual teachings. Recognition of your protection came with the understanding that it wasn't arbitrary. You'd earned it through countless lifetimes of service, through choosing love over fear in situations where fear seemed more logical, through maintaining faith when evidence suggested despair. The protection wasn't a gift, it was a graduation present for completing levels of spiritual development most souls never attempt. The leader's isolation became complete as even their co-conspirators abandoned them. Your workplace competitor distanced themselves when the professional consequences became clear. The supportive friend deleted all evidence of their collaboration when their own clients started questioning their methods. The healer publicly apologized for their involvement, throwing the leader under the bus to save their own reputation. The bonds forged in darkness dissolved the moment external pressure was applied. The dark night of the soul that the leader now faced was actually the universe's final gift to them, an opportunity for genuine transformation. The ego death they were experiencing could birth authentic spiritual power if they chose to surrender to the process. But surrender required acknowledging responsibility, making amends, and starting over without the artificial props they'd relied on for years. Your story doesn't end with victory over your enemies. It transforms into something far more powerful. The skills you developed defending against their attacks become the tools you use to help others recognize and deflect similar assaults. The discernment you sharpened seeing through their masks becomes wisdom you share with the next generation of chosen ones. The unshakable faith in cosmic justice that carried you through their worst campaigns becomes the foundation for everything you build in the years to come. The teaching mission that emerged from your trials reached far beyond anything you'd originally envisioned. Students came seeking not just spiritual guidance but protection techniques, discernment training, and instruction in maintaining authenticity under pressure. Your experience became a masterclass in spiritual self-defense that helped countless others navigate similar attacks. The breakthrough they'd tried so desperately to prevent becomes the launching pad for a mission bigger than anything they could have imagined. Where they saw competition, you now see collaboration. Where they feel scarcity, you create abundance. Where they spread fear, you cultivate love. The very thing they'd tried to destroy, your rising into your full power, becomes the key that unlocks doors for countless others walking the same path. The profound lesson embedded in this cosmic drama reveals itself in layers of understanding that unfold over time. Each attack they launched became a teaching tool for others facing similar challenges. Your response to persecution becomes a template for maintaining spiritual integrity under pressure. The documentation of their methods creates a handbook for recognizing and deflecting energy vampirism in all its sophisticated forms. What began as an attempt to destroy your mission transforms into the very foundation that makes your teaching unshakable and undeniably authentic. Money indeed proves to be a terrible master, but an excellent servant as it flows toward your authentic mission with effortless grace. The terrible master was never money itself, but the desperate energy with which they chased it. The excellent servant emerges when currency becomes a tool for service rather than a measure of worth. Every dollar that flows through your hands now carries the vibration of justice served and authentic work rewarded. Financial abundance in your hands serves purposes they could never have imagined. Instead of hoarding wealth for personal security, you channel it into projects that elevate consciousness on a global scale. Scholarship programs for aspiring healers, protection resources for targeted light workers, platforms for authentic voices that might otherwise go unheard. Money becomes the vehicle for massive positive change. Standing in the aftermath of their failed campaign, surrounded by opportunities that materialize despite their best efforts to block them, you finally understand the true meaning of being chosen, not chosen for privilege, but chosen for service. Not chosen for ease, but chosen for the strength to transform darkness into light through the simple act of remaining authentic under pressure. The community that now looks questionably at your former attackers looks to you with recognition and respect. They see what you've always been, not a threat to be eliminated, but a lighthouse guiding others home to their own authentic power. The very visibility they'd tried to prevent becomes the platform from which you'll serve humanity's awakening for decades to come. And in the quiet moments between the acclaim and the opportunities, between the vindication and the expansion, you remember that everything you needed to survive their assault was already inside you before they ever appeared. The Chosen One's greatest power was never the ability to fight back, but the capacity to remain luminous while others lost themselves in darkness, to stay grounded while others spun out of control, to trust in cosmic justice while others demanded immediate revenge. The frequency that started this journey continues to pulse through your awareness, no longer urgent and alarming, but steady and sure like a heartbeat. You are 5 steps ahead, not because you're trying to win a race, but because you're walking a path they haven't even discovered yet. Money serves your mission because your mission serves love. Opportunities flow toward you because you've become a clear channel for service. Protection surrounds you because you've aligned with forces that were ancient when their small schemes were still just seeds of jealousy in unhealed hearts. The whole community that once looked at you questionably through the distorted lens they provided now sees you clearly. More importantly, you see yourself clearly, not as a victim who survived an attack, but as a chosen one who transformed persecution into purpose, opposition into opportunity, and spiritual warfare into a masterclass in authentic power. This is what it means to be chosen, not to be perfect, but to be unbreakable, not to be without enemies, but to be protected by forces greater than any human opposition, not to avoid the darkness, but to become so bright that you transform it simply by existing in your truth. The game they started thinking they would win has ended exactly as the universe intended, with light triumphant, truth revealed, and authentic power establishing its rightful place in a world hungry for genuine spiritual leadership. Your story becomes legend, not because you defeated your enemies, but because you showed everyone watching what it looks like to stay centered in love, while the world around you chooses chaos. And somewhere in the silence between where this chapter ends and the next begins, that frequency from the deep pre-dawn hours whispers one final message, the same words that started this entire cosmic drama, but now carrying the weight of complete understanding. Well done, chosen one. Now the real work begins.